Hello and welcome to the Practical Animal Channel. The Practical Animal Channel is for you if you want to know what it takes to work with animals directly or indirectly for a living. That could be as a scientist, as an ecologist. It could be working with wildlife, if with wildlife, in the wild with free living animals or in captivity, or with agricultural animals, or with domestic animals, dogs and cats. Whatever your ambitions are, we aim to cover it all. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do, and keep watching because most videos that we do involve interviews over Zoom with animal industry professionals. My next guest today is a professor of ecology. He divides his time between Canada and Brazil, and he's here today to talk about what it takes to be a lecturer in tropical ecology. Pierre Girard, welcome to the Practical Animal Channel.
Okay, thank you, John. Nice to be there with you.
Thanks for your time, Pierre. Pierre, please can you start by describing your career from the beginning to date?
From the beginning to date, well, I started my career as a geologist. I did my studies at McGill University. That was and I graduated in 1983, actually, so it's a fairly long time ago. But as soon as I graduated as a geologist, I realized that I didn't really want to be involved with mining or petroleum, which is like the two main field for geologists. So I veered toward hydrogeology, water, and since then I've been working with water, and let's say rivers. Started with groundwaters, but very soon in my career, I went to rivers, and rivers is like there are the arteries of the continent. We use them. These are main water resource, but these are also main ecosystems where a lot of animal lives, a lot of plants live, and where I think what I'm doing right now is looking at how we interfere, we humans, with rivers, and I've been doing this since 1997, basically. So I've been looking at dams, how dams interfere with rivers, with the ecology, with what lives in river, with how we use in river. But I've also been looking at global change, like climate change. How do they interfere with rivers? And I've been looking at pollution. Right now, I'm looking at microplastic. How do microplastic interfere with one of the largest wetland ecosystem in the world, which is the Pantanal, which is located in the center of South America. So that would be my trajectory.
What else can you tell us about your research in the Pantanal, Pierre? What can you tell us about the Pantanal for somebody who's never heard of it?
Well, the Pantanal is a big place first. Like usually people don't know a lot about it, but it's a big place. It's about as big as England. Okay, so that's a very big wetland that is made of the floodplains of the Paraguay River and the connecting rivers to this main artery, and it has a fauna which is very different from the rest of the surroundings, and it's a place of mega diversity. You have there species that in the rest of South America and the rest of the world are almost in in danger or extinct. In the Pantanal, you have a lot of individuals, big populations of these animals. The blue macaw is a good example. The jaguar is another example. So the Pantanal, because it's a very difficult place to live, still today in that big place, there's about 4 million people living. So if you think about a place like England, but there's only 4 million people, and it's the conditions are harsh for humans, but it's a very beautiful place to visit. So lots of jewel of biodiversity right now. And what it depends basically on rivers, on the floodplain, the flood pulse of these rivers, like the water rhythm, like during the rain season, the rivers grow and they invade the dry land, and all that's dry become wet. So that's a pulsing system. And that maintains all this diversity. That's the Pantanal. It's like a big, how would I say that? It looks like a heart that pumps, okay? Like it receives water from the rest of the it's right in the middle of South America. So it receives a lot of water from many rivers, it stores it, and then it releases it. So that's the way it works. And in its work, it maintains all this diversity that I've been talking about.
Pierre, what are the skills, personal experiences, and personal qualities that it takes to be a professor of ecology?
I would say the first skill is the skill of scientists. You have to be you have to want to ask a lot of questions to yourself and to others. Okay, if you're ready to ask a lot of questions, then you probably learn a lot about ecology, and then you will have a lot to tell to the others, because professor is about telling to the others what you've learned. So you've got to be ready to ask a lot of questions, and not to be and if the answer is not what you expect, then you have to ask more. You cannot settle and say, okay, this is the way it is, and it will never change. You have to ask a lot of questions about the world, how it works, how the ecosystem works, how the animals fit in the ecosystem, why things are the way they are. So these are the kind of things that I think a professor of ecology has to have that in mind. Okay, I have to ask a lot of questions about the world, the way natures function. And then get the answer and try, and the answers change with times. The knowledge is always growing.
That's great.
I think that would be the most important for me.
Thank you very much. Pierre, what 3 books have most influenced your thinking as an ecologist?
Well, I've read a lot of textbooks, but when you ask me this question, these are not really the textbook that goes first. These most important books are books that are more philosophical in scope. Okay, so I've read a book it's 15 years ago by James Lovelock, which is The Revenge of Gaia. What was a very important book for me, because it says to us, oh, well, this is the living tissue of the earth. This is the ecosystems, and well, maybe they're affected by what we do, and they're going to react, and then maybe we'll suffer because of that. James Lovelock way of putting that. That's a very small book. It's not big book, but it's really well done and written. So that was one of my main influence. And then I read another book by Jared Diamond, which is called Collapse. This one is big book. It's a very big book, but it's really interesting because it draws on an historical perspective of what the humans have done to the planet and how this affected them as well. And finally, recently I read a book that really it was very good for me to read it, because in all that doom that we're seeing right now with nature, that book, which is called Humankind, really got me, it got me thinking and asking again, because it got a very different perspective. I don't know if you read that one, but it's very interesting. It revises, it goes through things that we think we knew, like, okay, the Easter Island story, that the people there chopped every tree, and then they go and they eat each other. And then it goes there, revise the historic facts, and say, well, that's not really the case. That's not the way it happened. So that links to the questions. Is this really what's happening? What's going on? So these books are very important. And I also read a very good textbook that oriented me in my career. I never really remembered the title of this book. Just let me check it right now. It's called it's a book by Schlesinger. It's called Geochemistry, Analysis of Global Change, right? And it's about geochemical cycles. This is very good. It gave me a very good framework to study the ecosystems. You probably realize now that I really study ecosystems, and ecosystems are where we are in the ecosystems. The animal, the plants, everything's are in the ecosystem. That's my outlook at nature.
Apart from philosophy books about ecology and the environment, and I guess that you would read those books from cover to cover, what about ecology textbooks, Pierre? Do you read those from cover to cover, or just pick and choose?
Well, this one that I just talked about, the biogeochemistry textbook, which is about ecosystem, the global cycles, the water cycle, the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, all these things that sustains us. We lived on this. Like, if there were no carbon cycle, we wouldn't be there. If there were no nitrogen cycle, we wouldn't be there. This I've read from cover to cover. Most textbook, I read a lot of articles, John. A lot of articles. And I read them through. I read articles that are like larger in scope or more focused on what I do, but I read the textbook, I use them a lot for my classes. And most of them, I've read them.
A lot of people who study success in different fields of endeavor say that to be successful in your chosen field of specialism, you need to read 2 hours a day in your field. Would you agree with that, Pierre?
I would, yes. You have to, but when you say 2 hours a day in your field, for example, I read the news in the Times and the Guardian, and I read the scientific section of these. So I maintain my mind open by looking at a broad scape, of what my field is about. And also I read like the articles that are more like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I want to learn more about that. And I read a lot of different things with different scope. So I think I read about that 2 hours a day, sometimes more, sometimes less, but more or less as a mean. Okay. But I'd say yes, read a lot, because ideas are getting to you by reading. Or chatting. But if you chat with a lot of people that are ahead, I think it's as good as reading. People that really know what they're talking about.
As an ecologist, Pierre, what's your most treasured possession?
My most treasured possession. My most treasured possession. It's a very interesting question. I don't possess a lot of things, but there's a place I go with repetition, and I'd say it's not really mine, because you really never own the place, but I think that the place would be really like, okay, this is the thing I like the most on earth. It's a place full of river, and it's called Chapada dos Guimarães, and it's full of small rivers and small patches of woods and birds and everything. This is my most cherished place, and I'd say, okay, this is the thing I would care a lot more about like right now. That places are very important to me.
Pierre, I've got a question which in our correspondence, in our previous correspondence, I didn't pass to you, but it's a question that continually fascinates me, and I always like to ask fellow ecologists. I've got a qualification in ecology. What do you think about the elephant sanctuary in Chapada? I'll edit this out, incidentally, if you're not happy answering.
The elephant sanctuary.
In
Sanctuary.
Chapada, there is a charity that about 10 years ago, maybe, opened a property, a farm, a fazenda, as an elephant sanctuary. I used to live near the Pantanal. You probably recall us meeting. And
yes, I do.
And I was in contact with the people who ran this sanctuary, and it's always fascinated me the opinions of other ecologists.
Well, actually, John, I don't really recall this place, but I think a sanctuary, the idea of a sanctuary, even if it's not an elephant sanctuary, the idea of the sanctuary fits a lot with the Chapada. A sanctuary is something that is like that is called. It's a place where you wouldn't change anything. That's the place where you would say, okay, we don't touch this place. It's kind of, it has a sacred aspect to it. So yes, I think that's interesting because it makes the link with some spiritual aspects of life that are very important for us to consider. Science it's interesting. It will make us survive probably with these difficult times, but I think honoring the fact that there's things that are greater and beyond science is very important as well. Okay, so there's a sanctuary. Maybe we don't understand everything about it, but that's important for it to be there. Okay, that would be like my point of view about a sanctuary. For me, the Pantanal is a sanctuary as well. Even if there's no organization doing anything with the Pantanal, it's a sanctuary. And it has to be kept. That's why I'm working with dams, because it influenced the flood pulse that maintain the Pantanal.
That's great. I've been to the Pantanal, the part where there is a cottage industry going on with the Jaguar Viewing. It was, for me, a peak experience. It was an absolutely fantastic experience. What do you think of that?
I think that's really important. That it all depends how it's done. There's many outfits that do that right now, bringing people to see the jaguar, which is not an animal that's easy to see. I've been in the Pantanal many years, and I didn't see that much jaguar. Okay. So you have to have a setup for it. You have to have people that know where to go. There's many ways of doing that, but this is a top predator into the Pantanal, and it really is a flagship to the Pantanal. It's so amazing to see one that I think it's very important, because the person that goes in the Pantanal to see the jaguar will understand that the jaguar is only there because the Pantanal is there. If you take out the Pantanal, no more jaguar. So I think this is a very interesting experience for the people. It probably helps them to realize, wow, this is a big place, this is a great place, and this is a fantastic animal to see. But if I either take out the animal or the place, I will be left without nothing. Okay, so I think it's interesting to do that. I have friends that do that. They have a business that's called Jaguar, and they lead people to see jaguars in the Pantanal in an expedition to 3 to 5 days, and I think they're doing a great job. Like, and it's an education job for me. This is really education, because it's not easy to go into Pantanal and see a jaguar by yourself. It's not even easy to go into the Pantanal by yourself.
It's definitely my most favorite place on earth, the Pantanal. Wonderful place. Pierre, what's your most interesting ecology fact?
Well, my most interesting ecology fact would be that we depend on river. That's a fact that has been established by science, okay? That the biodiversity in river is directly linked to human safety, because we depend on water for our living. So if we lose lose biodiversity in rivers, it means that we're aggressing the river, and at some point we will lose the benefit of the rivers. Water scarcity, basically. Most people rely on water, on rivers for their water. So if you lose the river, the biodiversity in rivers, that's an aggression toward the rivers, and that's an aggression toward ourselves. So like if you think about rivers like where you're in London right now, aren't you?
York in Northern England.
Where? New York. Okay. And there's a river there?
Yeah, there are. I should probably know the names better than I do, but there's the River Ouse.
All right. So, but anyhow, most cities and most important cities are established near rivers. This is like, okay, rivers have been accompanying humankind for all very, very, very long, very, very long. And so the rivers are important to our life quality. And this is an ecological fact. It's like, it's not, and it's the river biodiversity that we have to look at. Okay, if the biodiversity is good, then probably we're getting good services from the river ourselves.
Pierre, how would you describe the profession of being a lecturer in ecology today?
Today, to be the profession of lecturer in ecology is, first you have to have a very open mind, because the people that come into your classes come from very, very different paths. Okay, I teach ecology to engineers. I teach ecology to people that will go and form to be engineers, to be agronomists, to be biologists. I think I teach human ecology to people that are in public health. So you have to have a very wide scope, because ecology is talking about, it's a nexus. You can look at ecology, okay, let's talk about the plants and the animals into one place, but is there any one place where there's only plants and animals and there's no human? It's very rare today. So ecology is linked to human life, to our quality of life. So this is something that I've always in my mind when I lecture. So that's one quality, okay, be broad in scope. Even if you teach something that's really very precise, very to the one point, it has to be linked to a larger scope. So I think the teacher, the lecturer in ecology, he has to do that. He has to keep himself informed, And one thing that's really difficult, and I think every lecturer practices, is try to keep the audience interested so that they make a lot of questions. So it's to lead them to questions. So that's important. That's not easy to do, but I think it's really important. Lead your challenge your audience in a way or another, so they question you, so you can interact with them, because learning is a lot easier this way. That when you're talking about lecturing, you're talking about learning. So that I think would be like, okay, that's what it takes to be a good lecturer. At the moment, that's what I think about it.
Does the fact that you are in one continent and you are able to carry out your job on a totally different continent, does that play a part in the skills needed? I mean, you're in North America, but you teach also in South America, you're in Canada, and you teach in Brazil. Is that relevant?
Well, relevant, I don't think it's relevant, but I think it gives me an edge. Okay, the fact of, like, I came from Canada to Brazil. Okay, and I came in. Well, you asked me about my trajectory. I didn't describe everything, but I went to Africa before. I did most of my PhD in Africa, and close to the Niger River in Niger. So, okay, it gives me a scope, some perspective into nature. So this I think is an edge that I have. I know the earth is different. It changed. Geography is not the same everywhere, and you cannot really expect that things will work exactly the way they work where you are everywhere. Okay, and also that, well, things that happen in a country like Canada or the United States, and maybe will happen in a place like Brazil, because they did not happen yet. Okay, things that happened in England maybe will happen later in Brazil or in some other part of South America, because we have different histories, but maybe we're following very similar paths at different times. So that I think is really interesting for me.
And Pierre, how do you see academia changing over the next 20 years in the field of ecology?
I think there's very interesting things coming. I think the biology is really changing with all the tools that we have for understanding, for example, biodiversity, using all these genetical markers and these tools. I think we will start to study a lot more what we don't see, but what is important to us. I think the links between microorganism, insects, and human activity is going to be kind of every time it's going to be more profound. We're going to study that more, maybe because we will need that at some point. We're losing insects very fast right now, and we don't really know what's happening with that. So I think it's going to be fascinating, because we will have to understand a lot more about the connections between different parts of the ecosystems that we don't know. We tend to look a lot about things that we know, trees, the plants that we can cultivate, the animals that we're familiar with, but all of this depends on a bunch of insects and microorganisms that we don't really see and we don't think we live with. But I think in the next 20 years, this is going to become very, very important in ecology. And also the interference in these, okay? Like what's going on with the microplastics right now. We know we're invading the world with small parts of plastics. We don't really know what's going on with that. It seems some papers have been published saying, oh, that's not really, it's not having an impact, but we don't really know. There's a lot of things that we have to question right now. So I think this is going to be where it goes in the next 20 years. It's going to be really interesting, and I think more links are going to be drawn between human activity and the parts of the ecosystem that we don't really look at. Actually, lots of people don't know, and I think this is going to be also something that's going to grow into the general public, because scientists are going to make us aware of that. Like, it's starting to appear. Now we're talking a lot more about insects. I've read main articles in the Guardian, for example, about insects that you wouldn't read 20 years ago. Okay, what's going on with bees? What's going on with other insects? We know that populations of insects are dropping worldwide. You wouldn't see that in a journal like the Guardian maybe 20 years ago. Now we're seeing it more, because it's becoming an urgent question to solve. Okay, so I think that's where we're heading right now. I might be wrong, but I think that's gonna occupy more space into the academy in the next few years.
And
in
Pierre,
research.
what advice do you have for somebody who is an aspiring teacher of ecology, lecturer of ecology? They want to go into academia teaching ecology. What advice can you give somebody?
I would say, okay, ask questions first. Okay, ask questions to your teachers right now. Inform, read a lot, and also I think for me, ecology is about nature. Ecology is about understanding nature. So I think a good question a person has to ask himself or herself is, how do I like nature? Do I like nature? Is this something I really care for? What is nature to me? Okay. And see, and if the answers are like, okay, this is really important to me, and nature doesn't have to be the Pantanal, the African savanna. It could be a small pond behind your house. It could be anything that is the fabric of nature. But if you really like it, then go for it, study it, and if you like it, if you love it, you probably be a good teacher. It's gonna be easy to learn and transmit what you've learned. Okay, that's what I would be a good advice. I think a person has to ask himself about this. Or ecology, what does it mean, ecology, for me? More than just being a science that studies. Ecology means ecos is the home, is studying the home. What does that mean for anyone that wants to study ecology? So that would be the first question I would answer for myself. I came to ecology gradually, but as I was more and more involved with ecology, I really grew to understand that, okay, ecology is about the place where we live, the nature. We're in nature. So I would say, okay, ask yourself about that. Okay, if you think that you love it, then go ahead.
And Pierre, you came from Canada and you went to Brazil. Brazil is a vast country. I met you in tropical Brazil, in one of the hottest cities in the country, where we both lived. How did you adapt to cultural differences?
Well, people are different. In many places on Earth, people are different. I think if you focus on the differences, that might be difficult. But people are similar, and nature is nature everywhere. It works the same everywhere. There's difference, but fundamentally it works the same everywhere. Trees are doing photosynthesis everywhere there's tree. There are trees. So if you look at look at the cultural difference, it's like these things. Okay, people function more or less the same everywhere. You can see, just like I was telling one of these books, the humankind. What that book says is that we survive as a species because we're kind to one another. So I think that's what happens everywhere. If you look for it, you'll find kind people everywhere. There might be rough people too, but mostly there's kind people. So it helps you to go over the difference, and then as you become accustomed with the difference, you can appreciate them. That's something interesting. Like if there would be only, let's say you live in a big city. In the big city, there's many kind of different restaurants, and that makes it interesting. These are the difference. These are like what's good about the difference. Like, okay, not only with food, but a lot of different things. I like Brazil a lot because people cultivate friendships. They're really open with one another to receive people easily. In the place in Cuiabá, the city where I live, this is very easy to see. You're well received. Hospitality is a very good Brazilian quality. So that's something very, very interesting to live. That might be, sometimes it might be invading for a North American, but if you get accustomed to it, you see the good points. You have friends almost everywhere you go. So you meet friendly people that are willing to talk and know you and that are embracing you easily. So that's a good aspect of the culture. There's aspects that are not so good, but I won't talk about them. I just want to focus on this. Okay, so this is adapting. I think it's about that. It's about, okay, I have a set of different things in my. What's the good points? What are the good points? And I think in the place where I went, it was easy for me. Maybe in different place I would have a different opinion, but I didn't go there yet. So.
Pierre, have you got anything you would like to add?
Anything that I would like to add? Well, I think it's really interesting that now we have the opportunity to link to one another in very different manners. When I was getting out of the university, there was no sphere, this internet. Okay, so we wouldn't link to people all over the place like we're doing right now, John, that easily. We would have to write letters or send fax or whatever. It was difficult to even talk to somebody that was in a different country, or like when I did my PhD, talking to somebody in Africa, it was very difficult. So I think right now we're in a moment that we have a lot of challenges, but we have a lot of opportunities as well as person and as scientists, and it helps us to, I think, if we want to take advantage of it, to see the world more easily. That we live on a planet, and I think it's a lot more easy now to realize that we live on a planet than 30 years ago, when I finished my PhD. So that was a lot more difficult to realize that. You have to take a lot of planes to see that. But now I think it's a lot more easy to see that. So I think we have to take advantage of that. That would be what I would like to add. Take advantage of these opportunities right now. To anybody like want to do something, you want to become a lecturer, you want to do a science career, take advantage of that. That's really interesting.
Well, Pierre, I knew you as a professor, or well, it was in the context of conservation biology. I knew you at the Federal University of Mato Grosso in central western Brazil.
Yes.
As the Brazilians say, muito obrigado e grande abraço, meu irmão.
Abraço, meu irmão. Thank you very much, John.
Thanks very much for being on the Practical Animal channel.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.